We are back. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us on the Rice Football Blue and Gray preview show. I'm your host, Matthew Bartlett, the director and managing editor at The Roost, joined, as always, by my good friend, the Miracle Man called JP Heath. How you feeling?
Man, you threw that in on me. Thank you. Doing well, man. Doing well.
It was wonderful. It tied in directly to the feature I already had up ready for Matt Sykes. So I just I stole your homework. I copied and credited and said thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you very much, which has developed into the catchphrase over the decade plus. But yeah, I thought the way they did it and the way they pulled down, Matt Sykes pulled down the catch, and we later find out just how sick he was. And then he lost it in the lights. And he told me earlier this week, hey, that happens at night games. That's why they like playing during the day. But maybe not a miracle in the grand scheme of things, but just the way they executed it. Yeah, I stick by my words. We have the great Corey Gloor on with us now. How you doing, my friend?
Hi there, boys. Good to see you again.
Yeah.
I was watching that you're ending live as well Saturday night, and that was about as far as a jaw could drop with that catch that Sykes pulled off there in the back of the end zone. That was a batty game that you guys had.
Yeah, and we're breaking news that it's more fun to win those than lose those. So it was a good feeling. You've gotten used to the winning here these years on the mic. Give us a sense of the Greenies and obviously the season so far. We'll get into Coach Sumrall and his tendencies here in a little bit, but just tough schedule early. Record is a little bit deceiving, but just give us the history of Tulane football in a couple minutes as you so choose.
Yeah, I mean, I think this has been about as smooth of a switch and a coaching change as you could maybe have 6 weeks in. What John Sumrall has done is, I think, what a lot of people were hoping for in the first half of his first year here, as well as showing all the innovative things he brought to Troy in the last couple of years. And frankly, I think what's most important to a lot of folks here, knowing that the history of Tulane football, is that he kept the enthusiasm and the excitement up for this program after losing arguably their greatest ever coach. And so that was hard to do. And now you're seeing it on the field, especially the last 3 weeks, in which they have I think they've showcased nearly everything they're capable of. They keep saying there's more that they can do, especially offensively, but they're putting up 50 a game during this 3-game winning streak. And so I don't know how much more is in this bag of tricks that they are pulling out, but they have certainly, after Kansas State and a heartbreaker there in week 2, and then a slow start at Oklahoma, and then rallying to make that a 1-score game in the 4th, but not able to get it over the finish line, that this team has rounded the corner, filled out the holes that were in question with a roster that was in flux and a new coaching staff, and now they're playing at the level that I think people were hoping they'd be at by this point.
And you touched a little bit on Coach Sumrall inheriting a program where things were already going pretty good. How has he kind of put his own stamp on things, and what looks different, shifted from how things were under Willie Fritz?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest change you're going to see is just how this team runs offense now. And part of that is maybe not just the greatest coach that Tulane's ever had being gone, but maybe its greatest ever quarterback. And Michael Pratt is now no longer here. And so now this offense under offensive coordinator Joe Craddock, but John Sumrall also very much has a hand in the play calling here. They're running 2 quarterback formations. They're running wide receivers as running backs. They're running running backs as wide receivers. And I know you got kind of one of those guys that does all that as well. And we'll talk about that, I would imagine, here in a little bit. But I think it can go up tempo if it wants to. It is still primarily run the ball. That's always been Tulane's mantra. And Mekhi Hughes is one of the best backs, maybe the best running back in the conference. I know there are a couple leading rushers above them that are quarterbacks at the academies, but he might be the best running back in terms of just pure brute yardage that he can pick up. And so they want to keep it on the ground first, but what Darian Mensah has done as a redshirt freshman quarterback has been pretty astonishing, and they will put in another quarterback and run them both in one play, and it gets very chaotic at times, but they've been able to really make it look seamless over the last couple of weeks. So the way this team has played offensively, very different looking, very quick, fast skill players that we haven't really seen here at Tulane maybe ever.
Yeah, more about Mensah, if you don't mind. You answered some of it. I was going to ask you how they use him, but just redshirt freshmen aren't supposed to make it look, or in our medium, sound this easy. What is he doing, and how has OC and Coach Summerall and company made things easier on him?
I think what's been impressive right away, JP, is that there was a competition for the job after losing Michael Pratt to the draft. And it was between Kai Horton, who has been here the last couple of years. He's a Texas kid. And Ty Thompson, who transferred in from Oregon, was a former 5-star recruit. And Darian Mensah was not in that competition. What he did in camp was straight up go up and take the job away. And it wasn't even a case of those other two quarterbacks just not performing. They were inconsistent in camp, but Mensah was far and away the most clean and the most accurate passer leading into the season. And so he was told he wasn't in the mix, and he went up and took the job anyway. So right there, I think kind of gives you a little bit of the sense of the moxie this kid might have. He's a California kid, and not a whole lot has rattled him in the first 6 games of the year. He has gotten a lot better at protecting the ball. That was a bit of an issue against Kansas State and Oklahoma. But the command he has shown in the offense already, the fact that veterans on this team were saying in week 1 of the year that Mensah was calming them down in certain situations, and to have that come out for a guy that Tulane was his only FBS offer. He was getting FCS offers, but this is the only FBS, and to have him be, top in the conference in pass efficiencies, top 10 in the nation in yards per completion right now, and he's been exceptional at home. It's been pretty amazing to see a kid that was not necessarily written off, but was not in the discussion heading into fall. And for him to not just take the job, but be this effective at it has been pretty impressive.
And then one other group we haven't really touched on yet on the offense. I want to hear your take on the revamped receiving core. I guess with the transfer portal kind of allowing this, that's the one part when I watch the Tulane offense that really jumps out to me that seems to be, maybe the biggest leap they've made year over year.
It's the fastest receiving group we've ever had here, Matthew. And I'm in year 4. I haven't been here for the history of Tulane football, but I've talked to people who have been around for a long time. It doesn't compare these skill players to what has existed even last year. And there's a pretty good group last year. But Mario Williams out of USC and started at Oklahoma. Then Tulane saw him in the Cotton Bowl a couple of years ago and got him in the portal. These are not guys that Tulane is accustomed to getting in the portal. Mario Williams, Ty Thompson, these guys that were so highly thought of, and in the case of Williams, showed it at a power school in a very, very high way. To get him in the portal, the speed in which he has brought has been pretty mind-blowing for what this offense has been over the years. Then you add in Adante Fleming, who has taken a big step forward this year after a rocky first year at Tulane. Keith Brown was a leading receiver last week or 2 weeks ago at UAB. They are spreading the ball around a little bit more here. And one of the biggest guys that they brought in the portal hasn't even played yet this year, an Alabama receiver in Shaz Preston. He might be able to play this week. He's been nursing a hamstring all year, and he has been out practicing this week. So that could round this out even a little bit more here for Tulane in the skill position spot. But Mensah's been so comfortable throwing deep over the middle this year, and big part is because of just what these receivers have been for him in the first 6 weeks of the year. They've been something that Tulane really hasn't ever seen before.
We're talking with the great Corey Gloor of the Tulane Green Wave Owls and the Greenies over at Yulman Stadium coming up on Saturday. These types of chats, usually you don't bring up special teams at all. What is it? Like secret sauce with Coach Fritz and now with Coach Summerall? I'm sure some philosophies have leaked over with the talent too, and on the defensive side too, 8 non-offensive touchdowns on the season. What's the secret sauce? Tell us. We have to know.
Boy, I would love to know. But to say it's been a game changer is an understatement. I mean, 2 games this year in which Tulane has had both a defensive touchdown and a special teams touchdown. And not coincidentally, they won both of those. You better win those types of games if you're scoring in all 3 phases. But Rayshawn Pleasant has really come out of nowhere here, and he was a backup corner at the beginning of the year. Now he is probably starting on one of the sides of the field here in the secondary. It's been he and Jonathan Edwards, but this kid might be the fastest kid on the team. He was a former running back in high school, and he didn't get a lot of time last year. Now he's getting some time this year. Had a 100-yard pick six in the first game of the year, and then 2 kick return touchdowns this year, including one against UAB 2 weeks ago. And so he is being joked of being this team's Devin Hester right now. And you're seeing just how electric he is when the ball's in his hands, but he's also a pretty solid cover corner. And so what this has developed into is a team that you kind of have to be on guard everywhere you look. I would love to sit here and tell you why 4 of the interceptions this team has had have been returned for touchdowns. I don't know if there's just a common thread between the 4, other than you got guys who are finding holes, finding seams, and making plays when they have the ball, even if they're playing defense right now. And then you have what Pleasant's been able to do in the special teams game. So the last couple weeks, you have seen just all of this hit a second level right now for Tulane, and Rayshawn Pleasant's been at the center of it. So, it's going to be if you can't kick it through the end zone, Pleasant's going to try something on you, and he's burned a couple teams here so far by doing that.
Well, in transitioning with some of those pieces to the defense, you look up the stat sheet, and Tulane is crushing it across the board. Pick your favorite defensive metric. They're at the top of the league. Is there been one or 2 things that has particularly impressed you with this defense, and how is it setting the tone to enable all those good stacks to stack up?
I think that the biggest thing here, Matthew, is that the sack numbers are big. 17 sacks on the year. That's second in the conference, but that was a big problem in the first 4 weeks of the year. Tulane has 9 sacks in the last 2 games. And so what they have done, they have moved some pieces around on the defensive line, which I think a lot of people heading into the year thought would be the strength of this defense. It's a very deep defensive line, even with some transfers coming in. But it took a long time for it to get going. It wasn't until the South Florida game when conference play began, because the week before, Louisiana really ran all over this team. And so Tulane got out of there with a win, but there was a pretty stern challenge sent by John Summerall about the defense, and they have been responding in kind. And the front 4 has been a huge reason why. They have moved some people around there. Some guys that were showcasing themselves early on are now getting starts up there. A guy like Matthew Fobbs White's been a really good edge rusher here over the last couple of weeks, and he was really 4th in line in that particular position. And so they're not staying pat about who should be starting. They are putting the people out there that deserve to play. And now you're seeing this thing go a lot deeper than I think maybe even people were anticipating. So the fact that they are getting to the quarterback now since conference play has begun has been a big time change of pace and needed, because this secondary, we talked about Rayshawn Pleasant, but the secondary is really inexperienced heading into the year. Tulane lost a ton of veterans in the secondary from last year's team. And so, and their leading tackler from last year, Jesus Machado, hasn't played this year at all. He tore his knee up in the bowl game last year. And so the back 2 levels were still a little bit of a question. That front 4 was struggling to start the year. They aren't now, and it's allowed the rest of the defense to fall into place.
Yeah, and Tyler Grubb's drawing Social Security. My gosh, we've played him everywhere. My God.
Heck.
I mean, honestly, he probably just knows the Rice's roster up like the back of his hand by this point, because that's all he's been seeing the last 6 years.
Finally, flip the script from the Tulane perspective on Rice. You made a reference there to Dean Connors. Just anything you've gleaned from what Coach Summerall thinks about Rice and kind of launching another grenade in there, the rivalry. I think we haven't played each other enough to develop that true rivalry. Now, your boy Graff, when he was calling the games, it was getting there, but then we parted ways for a few years. So thoughts on those two things to finish up here.
Yeah, I'll start with the first one. I mean, John Summerall is very open book, and he doesn't mince words. There's not a lot of coach speak. So when he praises a guy like Dean Connors, and when he said on Tuesday that he's maybe the best skill player, one of the best skill players in the league, he means it, and he knows how much of a problem he will cause just with how many matchup issues he can make. I mean, you want him to be a running back, sure. You want him to be a receiver, fine. You want him to run him in receiver formations, fine. Like, I mean, he does so much for this offense that you have to be aware every time zero is on the field and where he is on the field, because he's going to spread it out 55 yards. He's going to go 100 yards north, south, like everything he can do causes teams a ton of problems. And so it starts there. If Tulane can keep a handle on Connors, they're going to feel good about things on Saturday. He has huge respect for Coach Bloomgren, and the amount of times he has said this week about how well coached this Rice team is, watching them on film and seeing guys that are maybe at times playing above their talent level, because that's just how well they are put together schematically and how good of a job this staff does at getting the very best out of this talent. That has been jumping out right away. He's been pretty open. He said 2 weeks ago, UAB probably has more talent than Rice, but there's no way that they're put together as good as Rice. And so you know that this Owls team is not going to give you a ton of free stuff. Now, I know penalties were an issue against UTSA, but they always seem to be an issue against UTSA for everybody. But I think he sees just how everybody's on the same page with this Owls group. And so he knows that it's going to be hard to get them discombobulated because they all know what they're supposed to be doing. That front line is fearsome, and Tulane has not allowed a sack in this 3-game winning streak, and that is going to be tested big time on Saturday with what this Rice defensive front can do. But for Coach Summerall, he sees a group that knows how they should be working together, and when they are in harmony, it's a very tough team to figure out.
Hey, in even bigger news, the double-decker taco is back at Taco Bell.
I was waiting for this, JP. How many do you think I've had already?
See, I would guess not double digits, but a good solid 6 or 8 in the 2 weeks.
We're up to 5. But
okay.
So actually, I have work to do before you get here on Friday, and I see you on Saturday. You have, I know you have a reservation at a much more prestigious New Orleans restaurant Friday night when you're in town. It's the gap is small, but I know you've made a very good choice for when you arrive on Friday. But no, there might be some there might be some thinking outside the box here in the next couple of days.
Yeah, the reference being Corey and I both. Taco Bell aficionados, albeit experts. Hey, thank you, brother. You're the best, and we'll talk to you very soon.
Thank you, boys. Appreciate you.
Awesome. Great. Corey Gloor. Yeah. Any taco favorites? I guess we talked about this last year, but
we did when he was on it. I had forgotten. And now I'm racking my mind trying to remember the last time that I've been to a Taco Bell. It is it's been a minute. No hate.
What?
I think we're more of a Torchy's family.
Yeah. Solid. No, they're wrong. Hey, food? Good.
But in general, like, I don't think I've really had a bad taco in this state. Like,
it's hard to mess up a taco.
It really is.
Mm-hmm. But we segue out of that culinary chit chat. Any thoughts on what Corey said, or heck, you drive it. Where do you want to go from here?
Well, we'll land the plane. He got me hyped for this Rice team. I listened to him, and I think what he said about what Coach Summerall said is really interesting. When they're in harmony, it looks really good. The question is that I have for you is, how confident are we that we are going to get the harmonious version of this Rice team this weekend? And do we think that harmonious version can pull off another upset?
100%.
They've gotten close at times, and they've had every year. They've had that one. Oh, they beat who?
You and me are thinking the same. Get out of my thoughts. This is a non-scripted show. And I was thinking the same thing. I forget who I text. I try to be as authentic as possible. Hopefully folks realize that. But I was just texting somebody that, hey, they get one of these or two of these a year, it seems like, where they sneak up on somebody. And Bloom on his show Monday night, which I'm sure you're paying attention and scribbling down notes, and everybody remembers this.
Every minute should do this.
Yes.
At Mi Casina?
Yes,
Go get a
at Mi
taco?
Casina.
It all ties
Excellent
together.
brisket quesadillas. Coach likes the Casina Chonga. But Coach brought up unprompted, I'm not playing Little Red Riding Hood here. I did not bring it up. I just asked him about Coach Sumrall, and he brought up unprompted the spread in the game, which surprised me a little bit.
Is that what it opened at, I believe?
I think 23 and a half for those that matter. And to give the context, I don't bet.
That's a lot.
Yes, it is a lot.
For
but
those who don't.
I don't bet because, one, I don't have the money. Two, not allowed with the job. Three, I'm not a gambler by nature, and there are probably six others. But so we don't talk about it too much, but I was surprised he brought it up in that nature. So I think he used that as a chip. I think he used that to motivate the guys, because we're naive thinking the guys, at least most of them, don't know something like that. And it's probably something psychologically that should be used as a motivating chip, but not that they have to have that to motivate to get ready for a Division I college football game. But I forget even where I was going, young Matthew. But yeah, I think they have these types of wins a lot, and they're due for one like this, especially as we saw them so close against Charlotte, finish the deal against UTSA. And as you and I have noted, stats-wise and performance-wise, they've played better on the road in the past. They just got to get that road W, that road gorilla off their shoulder, so to speak, and get that first road win of the year.
Well, if you just go back, 2020, undefeated top 15 Marshall on the road, beat them. 2022, conference leading UAB, beat them. Or in 21 and 22. It was both top dog in the conference UAB. Last year was actually the first year since this team really got cooking that they didn't have one of those wins. And frankly, they were one bounce away from getting against SMU or this Tulane team. So I'm not a gambler. I'm not saying go bet the house. I'm just saying something about this. I can't get that out of the back of my head. And I know Coach Summerall is well aware too. Do you have one thing? We talked about this team playing better on the road, and then the last couple weeks, the team that showed up last week in UTSA was better than the one that played Charlotte, and I'm sure it was a lot of the same players, but I don't think it was the same team that showed up against Sam Houston a month and a half ago. So if you have one thing that you're like, man, if you can do this, I think you take your chances of winning from 5-10%, whatever that spread suggests, to making it a coin flip in anybody's game. What's your key? Can we steal from your notes?
Yeah. Can I give you a few? Uncle JP is going to get on the pulpit a little bit here.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll allow it.
Don't allow a defensive or special teams touchdown. Newsflash, I know, right? Like my buddy Corey just said, what was it? 8 non-offensive touchdowns on the season. That's offensive, my friend. That is offensive, So
was that 2016, 2017 Bama season where they just scored on defense every single game? It's getting those vibes, man. It's just, I don't get it.
And some teams just have that knack, but you can't have that happen. And I look at what Tulane, where does the list stop? They're top 10 in scoring. They're top 5 in scoring margin. They're top 10 in time of possession, and they're really good on third downs. They're 9th in the nation in third down conversion. So all that to me spells getting the running game going. And Coach referenced it. I think Steve Helwick brought this up. I didn't know this, that Rice is last in the nation in rushing attempts per game. So with a confident EJ Warner, who referenced, like you said earlier, this is a different team than lost to Sam Houston. This is a different team than lost to Army. So they've got some swagger going. I really sense that. They've got some belief. They're getting some guys back from injury. We'll know more closer to the start of the game, but talking to a couple of the key players, they should be back coming for the game on Saturday. How do they get that ground game going to take the ball and taking the ball away too? But I know I gave you like 19 keys, but that, my scattered brain enough now. I don't really have a firm answer to you, but I still think they've got to find a way to run the ball against them because they're top 20 in pass efficiency defense. Is that going to be there? But they're just a really solid all-around team. I think it sounds weird saying this with Army season and Navy season, but don't count out Tulane. They still could be the best team in the conference. You're going to the team that
you're not wrong
has the best overall team in the league. So there, send. I don't think I answered your question, but there you go. So
you gave me a lot. I will note two things because I think part of that in there was what I was going to hang my hat on and saying that Rice is indeed last in the nation in rush attempts. I give that a big caveat because when you start the season 1-4 and you're losing by 30 for most of your first couple games, you don't run the football. So count number of rush attempts is just as much a function of game script as it is, do you want to run the football? So I do know for a fact that the staff still likes to run the football and that they still like Dean Connors and they want the ball to be in his hands as much as possible. Bloomgren said coming out of Charlotte, they wanted to try 20, 30 touches a game for Dean Connors. I don't know if we got there last week, but spoiler alert, you're going to win this game. You're not doing it without 20 or 30 touches to Dean Connors. And I think that is the answer. You go look at what this Tulane front did going into, they've been better the last two games against South Florida, who his offense has been a train wreck without Byron Brown, and UAB, who is not looking like they're having the best season. We'll say that. So, but against the functional offenses that they've played, even including Southeastern Louisiana, Kansas State, Oklahoma, UL, some good teams, they're giving up 4.5, 5 yards a carry on the ground. So how much of their improvement was, man, they played some teams that can't really run the ball? And how much of their improvement was they figured it out? I think it's probably a little bit of both and in between. And so if Rice is going to win this game, we need the Dean Connors breakout. Like we have had so many good games from Dean Connors. We haven't had him really go supernova yet. And we know what's in there. If Dean Connors goes supernova, Rice has a chance. If Dean Connors touches the ball 8 times, it's not going well. Summary. End of scene.
Yeah, I'm not ignoring you. I'm just doing the math there. I like Mr. Numbers guy. I like the way you phrase that. I like that because more touches means the other ones are going well and you get the old train going. And for the record, like Coach said this in the podium last year, so I'm not revealing any state secrets, but the way they view the analytics, remember the JT Daniels era there last year, that in the new modern analytics, it doesn't matter really what you rush. It's a yard is a yard is a yard. So how do you get those yards? And with the way EJ Warner kind of showed what he is last week, and that's what I would expect.
Yeah, how about like a spry EJ? Like, I think the first couple of weeks is like, oh, we'll give him one keeper just to keep the defense honest. But no, he was moving last week and really changed things up for how UTSA had to play this offense.
Yeah, if you remember late off season, or was that early this season when they said they incorporated a lot of things that came from Temple, and Coach Bloomgren even told me a couple weeks ago, hey, we're still on EJ. Hey, what do you like here? What do you not like in this situation? So it's evolving, man. It's not, you change, you get better. You look at what you've done.
Say,
yeah.
That's, and you hit it. That's what I want to focus on. And that's something that I don't know if I've seen it quite to this degree in previous Bloomgren seasons, but I see this team getting better and playing better. Like, it's really easy to do when you started as low as they did. Like, it was a rough start, but they do look better. They're playing better. They're making less defensive lapses. They're protecting EJ to a degree that they hadn't earlier. Like, there is some growth, which is good. You got to have a lot more to win this one.
Yeah. And you asked me, an old phrase is, you want to ask me who's going to win, you got to tell me who's playing, you know. one thing I really credit, I know we're running short on time now, but Coach Blumgren and the staff have not used even one excuse, is the guys that have been down. It's next man up. When I talked to wide receivers coach Bobby Kennedy on the Bloom show, and I guess some degree Coach Marcus Tuiasosopo to the OC, because it's a big deal that EJ hasn't had his top 3 wide receivers coming in there. And I talked to EJ about that last week at practice. Hey, it doesn't matter. This is their words. No one feels sorry for us. You got to adjust. And that's what they've done. The Matt Sykes story, my gosh, we haven't even touched on that. I know this is more of a look ahead show, but they have not used injuries as an excuse in the least when that's been up there on the tee for them to be able to use. And I, no surprise, credit them for that, because it's been tough on them. And it's been tough to watch so many guys out, and good to see them getting back healthy now. But
yeah. This is, as we land the plane, this is the game that you circle this as the point to turn your season. After how things have gone, you get to 500 in conference play after the year you've had. I can get excited about the rest of the way. If you don't win this one, I'm not saying the season's over, but man, this is an opportunity that I sure would like to see them take advantage of.
Because spoiler alert, UConn's really good. Memphis, pretty good. You know, this
it doesn't get easier.
Pretty solid. You know.
No matter what happens, though, we'll be back, JP. We are nothing if not persistent. Sometimes my wife says stubborn, but we will return for a next show. We'll talk about this game, look ahead at the game ahead, and we'll go from there just like we do every week. Thank you for all of you who have tuned in with us, followed along. Thank you for your support. We really, really do enjoy this, and we just are grateful to get to talk football and tacos and everything else. That's all we got this week. We will see you next week. Rice Fight.
Never dies, baby. Never dies. The cheesy gordita crunch, though. I mean, my goodness. You have this chicken melt thing, too. It's just...
Do they still have that pizza?